Hey, Wid fam. This is Leo with One Happy Widow. I'm so glad that you're here. We already have a handful of people that have been waiting. So while we're waiting for people to kind of log on and come on the chat, be sure to let us know where you're from if you'd like to do that and just say hello. A lot of times we have a lot of the same people that I recognize, and we always have some new folks to come and join us too. So it's been a couple weeks, I think, since I've done a live. Still trying to figure out how to get my camera to work on the live. So it's a work in progress. So while we're waiting on some people to come in and to get started, today the topic is we're going to compare the grief process or the grief journey from year one versus year two, because it seems to be a pretty big difference between those two. And it comes up a lot in the topics on our Facebook group and things. I get some of the best ideas from the topics on the Facebook group, because that way I know what you guys are struggling with and what seems to be common themes. And then I can speak on those things and at least just share with you what my experiences are. And then, we can just kind of go from there. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Some people think year two is actually harder than year one. Other people don't. I think it just depends on how you perceive changes and what your expectations are versus what really happens. And so we're going to talk about all of that in just a few minutes. First, we'll do a little bit of a catch up and chit chat, and I'll give you a few little resources and something to think about. So first of all, I just want to talk about when you're in the grieving process and you are you feel like you might be stuck. You feel like you're not getting any better, or things aren't getting any better. And it's a lot like if you've ever gotten a really bad haircut. The grief is not like a haircut. I'm just trying to use this analogy, but like I've gone into the salon a few times and asked, for a popular haircut, or even brought a picture and walked out with nothing like what I asked for. And when I walk out and I look in the mirror for the first time, and I'm thinking, this is really bad. And do you know how long it's going to take? This is never going to grow out. And so you look in the mirror the next day, and guess what? It still looks just as bad. And then the next day and the next day, and you keep looking and you think, have you ever like cut some really short bangs, and then as soon as you did it, it was an instant regret? And you're like, how long is it going to take to grow these bangs out? So the point is, you can look in the mirror every single day and not see a change. It looks the same every day. But if you take a picture of yourself and then you go back weeks or even months later and you look, that's when you realize, wow, whoa, that was a bad haircut. And then you look and you realize now it looks a lot better. But if you sit and wait to see the changes happen right in front of you, that is not going to happen. Okay. Same thing with weight loss. Weight loss is, they say that it's not hard to do the right thing. It's not hard to eat the right thing when you're trying to lose weight. It's just so easy to eat the bad stuff. It's not hard to eat good. It's just so easy to eat bad. But anyway, you're trying to do the right thing, and you're trying to eat the right things, and you're trying to do your exercise, and you're trying to do all these things. And it's just the weight's not coming off, or it's coming off on the scales, but you look in the mirror and you just don't feel like you look any different because it takes so long. It's like growing your nails. You don't notice it. It happens over time. And so the best way for you to be able to see that you really have come, however far that you've come, or that you're really doing better, or that you're really growing in your grief journey, is to journal. Okay. You journal what you're feeling, write your thoughts and your feelings down, and then go back every few months. I would say every quarter, whenever the weather changes, whenever the season changes, go back and read some of your entries. And I think you will be really surprised. You will think that you're stuck in the same place and nothing has changed, but you will realize when you go back and you read some of your entries, I think you'll be really surprised that you had some feelings and thoughts that you may not have anymore, or that you're able to handle things better now than you were able to handle before. And so I highly recommend that you do some journaling. It's some of the best therapy that you can have, or that you can do. Even my therapist told me that. The first thing she told me to do on my first visit, she was like, oh girl, you need to journal. And to be honest, I'm not great at journaling myself, because like writing things down just it's a little boring sometimes, but my journaling comes out in my videos. My journaling comes out, and I go back sometimes and watch my old videos, and I'm like, wow, I forgot that I even struggled with that issue that week, and it just all comes back to me. And I'm like, ooh, I look at some of the issues that my kids were going through at a time, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Thank God they're not doing those things anymore, going through those issues anymore. We still have issues. We're still dealing with stuff, but I use my videos as a way of kind of like, live journaling. So I still get my feelings and thoughts out, and I'm still able to go back and see. And sometimes I can see the difference in my weight changes on my videos, or my hair changes, or my color changes, or my nail changes, or whatever. And so it's just a way for you to compare over a long period of time if you really are making some progress or not. If you don't have a journal, I'm going to look up some journal books that you might be able to buy on Amazon, and I'll put some links down below after I finish this video. But if you want some free printable journal pages you can print out, that have the blanks in there that you can write, I have those now. They're up on my site. It's active. You can I have it in the chat box at the top. It's onehappywidow.com/journal. And all you got to do is fill in your name and email address, and it will send you the free PDF, and you can print it up. You can print as many copies as you want to, and you can write on them. There's 5 or 6 different styles. So you pick out the style that you want, or just do a mix. And I'm working on some journal prompts too, so that'll be coming soon, but these are just blanks. So you can either write what you're thinking at the time, or you can look up some journal prompts yourself. The best way to get started on that, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek to the first lesson in our pivot course. So if you've heard about the pivot course that I have created, the links are in the description below, but it's a 28 lesson course, and it's meant to, get you out of that rut from grief into growth every day. So there's a lot of exercises. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of printables, just a lot of things for you to do to help yourself. The very first lesson, number one lesson on the very first day, is for you to write a letter to your future self. So if you're just starting to journal and you're not really sure what to write about, I would highly recommend doing that. So what you do is you take your piece of paper and you write a letter to your future self. And you can pick whatever future self you would like, say a year down the road. And what you do is you explain where you are right now. Talk about what issues you're struggling with right now, how you're feeling right now, what your job situation is right now, what your struggles are, and how are you dealing with them. And then write out where you would like to be. Where do you want to be for your future self? What does your future self look like, sound like, is dealing with? And I actually want you to take that letter and save it. And then I want you to go back. You can choose 3 months, 6 months, or a year, whatever. Go back and read that letter to yourself and see where you've gone. See how far you've gone. And if you write a letter to yourself and you explain where you are today, and you also think about where you want to be in the future, that gives you a beginning and an end, so that you can start making goals for yourself, and you can fill in that blank. You can fill in those blanks and start making a growth path for yourself. Because if you can figure out where you are and you can figure out where you want to be, then you can start filling in how to get to that place. And if you can't do it yourself, then we can help you find resources to hold your hand and walk along with you and get you from the point A to point Z. All right. So that's my spiel about journals. And let's see. We've got Jonice is here. We've got Linda is here from California. Janet is here. Year 1, business year. Year 2, numb. Yeah. Now 1 month into year 3, realization and grief. So that's pretty common. Yeah. And it doesn't surprise me at all. And that's what we're going to talk about in just a few minutes, about how those things kind of morph, from one to the other. Jonice says, I don't want to think year 2 is worse. And I know, Jonice, you just you just commemorated your 1 year. She had a beautiful video that she put on our group and shared with us. It was a bunch of videos of her and her husband and her family, and a song that she sang, and it was a tribute to him. It was awesome. And so, yeah, she just got to that 1 year milestone. And so she's now into year 2. And that's kind of, she was kind of my inspiration on deciding to talk about this topic today. So, and just so you know, Jonice, it's for me, year 2 was not worse. It was different, but it was not worse. I'm not one that said year 2 was worse, but I have heard people say that, and I'm going to talk about why I think that they say that. All right, and I think it's all about kind of how you perceive things or what your expectations were. All right. Let's see. From Sue is here from Idaho. Tim is from North Carolina. Greetings, everyone, from Snowy Owls. I hit the 1-year mark next month with the passing of my wife. So you're coming up on that 1-year milestone. Gigi says, "Hey, WID fam." So she must be part of the Facebook group. Linda says, "I'm the same as you, Janet Henderson. 1 month into year 3, it's harder than year 2." And so, like I said, it's everybody kind of interprets it a little differently. So we're just going to talk about how those differences are and maybe what to expect. Sometimes I think if you know what to expect, it's not as difficult because you kind of were prepared for it. Almost like when you have baby number 1, you're all excited about everything, and then I don't know, it's kind of the opposite with that. When I had baby number 1, I was all excited. When I had baby number 2, I knew exactly what I was in for, and I got a little bit more scared. But Barb says, "Hello from Missouri. A life blessed. Just a thought to see what other thing. Do you think there is a choice in grief?" Interesting question. So we can touch on that also as we kind of talk on this topic. I'll have a productive day, feeling I've made progress, and the next day I get more correspondence or email with stuff that I need to do. Totally normal, Carol. Yeah, we see that. That's kind of where we are, especially in the beginning. It's like, even if we try to move forward and have a good day, we get knocked back really easily because of so much stuff that we have to deal with. It's a lot of chaos, especially in the beginning. Javelina Flips, hello from Tucson, 12 days in. Thank you for all the encouragement in the Facebook group. So you are definitely in your stages of fresh grief. So we definitely want to support you through that. And I'm so glad that you're in the Facebook group, because that's an awesome place to be for lots of people to get support. I'm in day 2 of month 2, says Carol. Marcia says, having anxiety. Marcia, the video that I put out last week might be a good one for you from having anxiety. It has some exercises in there on grounding and getting your mind into the present and kind of helping you so that you can be able to get your brain focused so that you can focus on your issues, and help yourself move forward. So if you want to look at the last video before this one that I posted on the YouTube channel, that one might help you. Carol says, "Thank you for your channel." Naomi says, "Leo, I don't like to look at pics of me during the last 2 months of his life and during the last first year after he passed." Yeah, I totally get that. Sometimes it's hard for me to look at pictures of Dewey towards the end because he was sick and he just didn't look like the man that I knew. But once we knew he was dying, we took all these pictures because we were like, "Oh, got to get pictures." Before you knew it, you didn't take as many pictures because you didn't realize you were on borrowed time. So my phone is full of all these pictures of him when he was sick. And, I don't really want to remember him that way, but that's what most of the pictures are. So I totally get that. Tim Smith, greetings from another guy here. So yes, a lot of times we have a lot of widows, but we do have some widowers that kind of check in every now and then, and widowers are welcome to join our group and to to share all of their stories and their struggles. And we give everybody support. Anybody who comes in and needs it. So it will be 6 months on Tuesday. Don't forget us guys out here. That's right. Sometimes I have to watch myself so I don't just say widows all the time. So I do know that we have some men that also are in our group. Okay. So, oh Lord, we've got somebody. We got somebody in here that needs to be taken out. Yeah, I'm not really sure if I can. I don't know if I can get them out of here altogether. Like they posted a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to get them off of here and hope that they aren't able to put more stuff on. So sorry about that. Okay. Hopefully I removed the inappropriate stuff. They're not able to get through because I have the blocker on there, but I guess they figure out a way to get in there. So anyway, yeah, I think I was able to get them off of here. Hopefully they won't be able to get back in. So I apologize about that. That was not good. All right. So let's go on to the next. I did take some notes so that I won't get off topic too much, but you know me. Okay, so we talked about the journaling, we talked about the writing a letter to yourself, and oh, something that has really helped me that is totally off topic, but just wanted to let you know that something that I've been doing. My sister and I, we live about just over an hour apart of a drive, and we're both teachers, so we both have the summer off. But we have been doing a weekly lunch meeting. And so we just meet for lunch we were doing it on Mondays, which was dumb because the holidays kept popping up on Mondays and the restaurants we wanted to go to were closed. And so I think we're just going to have to change it to Tuesdays. But anyway, we have a standing lunch date every once a week. And one week she'll come up to me and come somewhere around where I live. And then the next week I'll go down to her, go somewhere where she lives. And we try to, kind of spread it out, pick different restaurants. And the people don't like us there because we sit there for 3 or 4 hours and talk, and they stop refilling our drinks and they start cleaning up around us to give us a hint to leave. But the point is that since I work from home right now and I'm not out doing my job and I'm at home a lot, I can become a homebody and not really get out very much. And so this is something that's like a standing thing for me during the summer, at least. And it's really helped me because I have something to look forward to. I know that once a week it's already written in stone. I don't have to worry about making a plan or whatever. It's already there. But we just sit together and we just share, joke about life and talk about whatever's going on. And it's just a way for us to socialize and connect. And, it gives me something to look forward to. It gets me out of the house. It makes me get up and fix my hair and get dressed and, do all those things. And so if you are able to do something like that, find a friend, a coworker, a church member, something like that, somebody in person that you can meet with once a week, once every other week, once a month, if that's all you can do. But like, if you can try to find somebody that you can connect with on a regular basis and just kind of put it there in your standing calendar. It doesn't have to be another widowed person, but just somebody that you're close to or that you connect with and that you can just, socialize with. It's a really good, it keeps you from making excuses not to do it. Like, oh yeah, we need to meet. We need to have lunch sometime. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Give me a call. No, just go ahead and have it there set in stone. And you don't have to think about, one day soon, we'll meet up. We'll make a lunch date. Just go ahead and make it. And then, it's there all the time and you're less likely to back out, or not do it at all. And so it's really helped me. It's given me something to look forward to because we always laugh and cut up and joke and have fun. And so if that's something that you can work out with somebody local to you, then I would highly recommend doing that. Not just for a grief thing, but just for a social thing, because sometimes we tend to kind of stay in our house or we don't get out much, or a lot of times we I don't want to be around people, or we're not taking care of ourselves. And so we figure, and so this is just a chance for you to get out, get social, connect with somebody that you care about. And it really does help because then it gives me something to look forward to. And I'm also, I'm on that weight loss program, so I'm working on that one too, but that's the one day that I am not on my program. It's one day a week that I'm not on my program. So I get to eat what I want, enjoy myself, drink what I want, whatever. And then I get right back to it the next day. So it's been very helpful for me. I highly recommend it. All right. Yeah, I don't know if you can individually block those kind of comments. I mean, you could give it a try if you can. I'm not really sure what you have control, but if you see those comments come up again, you can try to block it yourself or report it maybe. I don't know, but hopefully that got taken care of. All right. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention before we get into the year 1 versus year 2 is that my daughter, Dallas, my youngest daughter, the 12-year-old, I talked about this in a video a few weeks ago about how grief compounds. And so when you're dealing with already the grief of your spouse or the loss of your dad or whatever, somebody that is close to you, it seems like every loss after that is compounded. And it's like it opens up that wound again, and you have to, it kind of sets you back in your grief. And so Dallas came in yesterday and she was very upset. One of her, like a YouTuber or a streamer or a gamer, I'm not really sure what you call him, but somebody that did Minecraft on YouTube that she had followed for quite some time, very young and like in his 20s. and so, somebody that she liked to watch, and he had cancer. And I think she knew that he was sick, but he had like shoulder cancer or something. And he died a few days ago. And his dad brought a thing into the hospital, and he did like his last final farewell video for his people. And so she'd been following that, and she was very, very upset. And my second daughter went through that also right after her dad died, like the 2 years after her dad died at our school. She went to school the same place that I taught. So within that next 2 years after her dad died, we had 5 students die, either from suicide, from accidental death. I mean, just various different things. But like we had 5 of our students that died. I mean, that's to me, it's unreal. And they were all people that she knew. Some of them she was very close to. And so it was like, Mom, I can't take this. Every time I'm, get knocked down and feel like I'm trying to get back up again, I get knocked down again. So Dallas was going through that yesterday, and it's really kind of torn her up, because it's like bringing those feelings of grief back up again to the surface. And so just know, if you have children, that kind of thing will affect them much more acutely now than it would. I mean, obviously, they would be sad if somebody they knew died, or a classmate of theirs died. Obviously, they're going to be very sad. But just know that when they're dealing with the death of a parent, that grief is probably going to be 10 times worse on them. It's really going to affect them, because they're going to feel all those grief feelings all over again for their parent, in addition to the loss of the person that they cared about or that they knew about. And so, anyway, so that's just something that we've dealt with this week. And we just have to give her a little extra consideration, a little extra love, a little extra attention, and just know that she's going to be down about this for a little bit. All right, so now we're going to talk about the topic at hand: year 1 versus year 2. And some people are even talking about year 3, but at some point it just kind of levels out to just years after. But obviously, let's talk about year 1. So the first few months of year 1 is filled with nothing but chaos. So your life is turned upside down. Everything about your life is all about the loss of your spouse. It's the first thought that you think about when you wake up. It's the last thought that you think about when you go to bed. Everything that you have to deal with, everything that you say, everything you think, everything you feel, all of it is your loss is like top of mind awareness. It's right there, and you cannot escape it. Your whole life is consumed with it. And so, and not only do you have grief, but you have family members. You might have pets. You might have financial issues that you're having to deal with. You have job issues that you're having to deal with. You have legal issues that you're having to deal with. You're doing all kinds of paperwork. You're filling out stuff. You're doing bank stuff. You're switching things around. You might be going to court. You know all this stuff, because if you've lost your spouse, you either are in the middle of going through all this, or you just went through it and you remember all that stuff. But like your whole life, every single day, there's something to do that has to deal with your loss, whether it be emotionally, whether it be logistically, whether it be personally. It's all consuming. And so it takes several months before that starts to taper off a little bit. The grief doesn't, but all the other stuff that has to do with your loss does start to taper off a little bit. And then maybe you're getting back to work, or your kids are getting back to school, or, you're starting to develop these routines, I guess. And they call it the new normal. And I always hated that term, because I don't want that to be normal. Like, I don't want being a widow to be normal, but I don't have a choice. And so it really is the new normal, even though I don't like that term, but it's pretty accurate. And so you're trying to figure out, like, what is my life now, and how do I live it on a regular basis? So during that whole first year, you go from absolute utter chaos to taking care of one thing at a time, sort of checking off a list. And then once you get finished, like, dealing with all of the secondary stuff, then you're just kind of left with your grief and your emotions. And now you're like, okay, now I have to deal with all the stuff that's going inside in my heart, and the stuff that's going inside my head. And that's about the time when your mind and your heart are starting to reconcile and become one, because for in early grief, your mind is saying one thing and your heart is saying something else, and they are usually two very different things. Like, you know that they're gone, but you can't really believe it because it doesn't seem real, and then your heart doesn't want to believe it, and so it's your feelings and your mind and your brain, everything is like fractured, and you have to bring everything together into one place. And it takes a while to do that. And so once you're finally starting to do all of that inside, and that's about the time when things maybe start to taper off, as far as, the legal stuff or the job stuff or the financial stuff, or, whatever the things are that you're having to deal with. Sometimes we're having to go back to work before we even want to. And so we're figuring out, how do we be an effective worker while we're dealing with this grief at the same time. So that first year back, to me, the first year back to work after Dewey died was just really tough. And I was a school teacher, so I was able to stay home in the summer without having to take leave because it was already summer vacation. So I think I got about 5 weeks after he died before I had to go back to work. But it was a really hard transition for me to go back to work because my heart was not in it anymore. My the things that were important to me before were no longer important to me, or just not as important to me. My priorities were in a different place. My kids, I was trying to raise my kids. And I've said this many times, but raising grieving children is so much harder than grieving your own self. And I had no idea what I was in for on that. And so my kids were just, I had 4 of them. They were at home and they were just falling apart, and they were all needing resources and help that I couldn't give them, or didn't know how to give them, or didn't even know they needed. Oh, it was a mess. I can remember that first year, and everybody looked at me differently because every time I walked down the hall, maybe they didn't, but in my mind, I felt like they were, that's that woman whose husband died, I just, it was, the transition back to work was sucked. And, I finally was just like, I can't stay here anymore. I can't stay at this school anymore. And then, my daughter who was a student there, had all these issues. She was getting in trouble. She was expecting me to bail her out of her trouble because I was teaching there, but that was my place of work. And so it was hard for me to be parent and stand up for my child and be the worker and not get in trouble. So how do you complain to your boss about what he's not doing to help your kid? So I'd come in with the parent hat on and leave with the teacher hat. And so it was just a conflict of interest big time. So, and it was just too much. Like, I couldn't be a good teacher because I was too distracted. I couldn't be a good mom because I was too distracted by my job. So I finally changed schools and went part-time. So anyway, all that happened in the first year. And also I moved and built a house. And so there was a lot of changes. But I can remember thinking during that year that, first of all, you're going through every first milestone. So year one is, it's the first this without them. It's the first that without them. It's the first birthday. It's the first holiday. It's the first everything. In the first 365 days after they pass, you have your first every single one of whatever it is that you're celebrating. Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I mean, every single thing. And then there's also other milestones, like the first month of their death, or the first 3 months of their birthday, or for me, New Year's Day was like the hardest one. I never thought it would be, but New Year's Day was the hardest milestone for me. And I think it's because I thought I was the only one. And it turns out this is kind of common, but it's like when you turn the calendar over and it changes from one year to the next. He died in 2017. So when I turned that corner and it was 2018, it just was a concrete reminder to me that 2018 would be the first full year that he was not alive on this earth. As long as 2017 was there, he was alive for part of it. He was alive for half of 2017. So as long as it's 2017, it was like he was just here. But 2018, from January 1st until December 31st of 2018, not one single day would he have walked this earth. And so that really bothered me. And I kept thinking, if I could just get through the milestones, if I can just get through the first Father's Day, the first birthday, the first this, the first that, if I can just get through all the firsts, then, it'll get better, I guess. And most of the time, the anticipation or the anxiety that I felt leading up to the day of whatever the milestone was worse than the actual day, because I'd wake up and the actual day is just a day, just another day that they're gone. And so I was like, wow, like I hyped this thing up and got all nervous about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do on this day? And it's just another day. We just did whatever we could. We survived. We just did what we could do on each of those days. But I can remember thinking, I just got to get through that first year. I just got to get through that first year. And I never thought about what happens after that. Like, if I get through the first year, June 17th when he died, if I can just get to June 17th, 2018, then I did it. I made it a year as a widow. I did it. It's not like something you celebrate, but like I felt like that was in itself a milestone. Like, I survived. If I can survive this, I can survive. Okay, I can do it. And then it's kind of like when you're playing a video game on a car racing game, and you're going through the path and you see the finish line, and the finish line's coming. And as soon as you pass the finish line, what is happening? You're still in the race. And now you're in lap 2 and you're going around and you're just going around to the finish line. But guess what? The finish line is actually the starting line, because it's in a big circle. So the same thing happens with your milestones and your timeline. Like, you finish year 1, but the last day of year 1 just bleeds into the first day of year 2. And so sometimes when we feel like, okay, if we could just make it, like, it's not like your journey is done. Your journey of your first year is, but like, you're not going to wake up and not be widowed anymore. You're not going to wake up and suddenly be like, okay, I'm healed. I'm cured. I'm healed. Cool. I did it. My grieving's over. I'm done. Now I can just get up and go. Like, it does not work that way. You wake up on the first day of year 2 and you're like, wow, this is just like it was yesterday. Like, it's just as bad as it was yesterday. And I'm still widowed and he's still gone. And guess what? Now he's been gone for a year. And so that's kind of what happens in year 1. So we've kind of covered all of that. We know it's terrible. We know it sucks. We know about all the chaos. We know how all of that stuff happens. And now you've gone through every single milestone. Let me see if I covered all of that. And then, like I said, you're starting to develop maybe some routines or some new normal. You're at least trying to figure out how you can live on a day-to-day basis and survive one day at a time. This is where a journal will be helpful, okay? Because if you started journaling right in the beginning where everything was chaos and horrible, if you were to go at the end of that year where you're starting to be, to develop new routines and new normals, if you went back and read a journal from like the first 2 months or 3 months after your spouse died, you would probably be very surprised at how far you've come. Not only that, but if you're anything like me, a lot of things happen that I don't remember. Like, I don't know if it's defense mechanism that I just didn't want to think about it. Like, you remember things that you think about a lot. If you have a memory that sticks around, you relive that memory in your mind and you talk about it with somebody. That's how you keep your memories alive. This is why you should talk about your spouse with your children and with other people, because that's the best way to keep their memory alive, is talk about those memories so you don't forget them. But you don't want to relive the real painful memories of your fresh grief. And so you don't think about them and you tend to forget them. And I think your mind is just doing that to protect you. So somebody will come up, a kid or come up or something, and be like, hey, Mom, you remember when such and such happened? And I'm like, I don't, oh yeah. Like, it'll come back. I don't have amnesia from all of that. It's just, I don't want to think about it. And so when it comes back, I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that. Whoa, that sucked. And so, we're choosing not to relive those painful memories if we can help it. And so it probably was a lot harder on you than you even thought it was. All right. So now we're on year. And so I think this is what happens with year 2, for the reason why people say year 2 is worse. I don't feel like year 2 was worse for me, but I do understand why people might feel that it was worse for them because of these differences. So year 2, like I said, the first thing that happens is the realization that this is not ever going to change. Like, I thought I was going to get to this milestone, this last whatever, and survive this year. And I'm still sad, and I'm still widowed, and I'm still hurting, and I'm still grieving, and I'm still getting mail, from bill collectors in my husband's name. And my kids are still sad, and they are really suffering and grieving, and they're going to therapy, and I still cry, and I'm still suffering. Like, it is better. Like, you are doing better than you were in the very first few months, but maybe not as good as you thought you would be, or maybe in your mind you just made this up to be like, I will be okay if I can just make it to this point, and then you realize it's not like you thought it was going to be. And so what it is more of the same. It's just to me, I'm like, well, this is just another day that they're dead, just like it was yesterday and the day before that and the 40 days before that and the 75 days before that and the 365 days, like it just keeps on going and going. And I'm like, wow, this is no different. Year 2, not any different. It's like when you're a kid and you're waiting for your birthday and you think you're going to wake up. And when you're 12, and when you wake up at 12, you're like, I'm going to feel like I'm so much older and so much bigger. And you wake up on your 12th birthday and you feel exactly the same as you did yesterday. Like, how does it feel to be 12? And you're like, feels the same as it did to be 11, because yesterday I was 11. Like, so that's a good, that's a good celebration, but you remember being a kid and you think you're going to feel so different on that day, and you just don't. Like, you're the same person you were yesterday. So it's kind of like that. You think it's going to be suddenly the fog is going to clear and things are going to feel different and better, and they just don't. It's just another day. Now it's another day that you're moving forward in your grief, but you only move forward like this much from yesterday to today, but you move forward this much in that first year. So that's why it's so important to look back, in the larger chunks, not just to yesterday, but like 6 months ago, 12 months ago, or whatever it might be. In addition to that, at the end of year 1, when you're going into year 2, maybe you thought it was going to be better, and then you realize your spouse has now been gone for a year. And then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen him for a year. I remember when Dewey deployed, when we were married, and he was gone for 9 months. And I thought I would die. I thought, man, I don't know how I can take this. How do you stay away from your spouse for 9 whole months? But at least during that time when I thought it was just, oh my God, it's going to be forever, and you feel like it's never going to get there. But at least at the end of that time, that 9 months or whatever it was, that you're going to see him again. But then that realization comes that not only have you not seen them for a year, you're not ever going to see them again on this side of heaven, whatever your religious beliefs are, whatever. Like I believe that Dewey's in heaven. I'm going to see him again one day, but it's still not going to be the same. You're not married in heaven. And so it's still going to be different. And I don't know what it's going to be like, but all I know is that what I know now, the way that we will never be again. And so I don't know how long I'm going to live, but however many days that is in the future, that's how it's going to be. And so that is a bummer when it's so obvious, but honestly, I never thought about it until I thought about it. And then when that realization came to me shortly after year 2 started, and I was like, wow, like, I'm really going to move forward for the rest of my life and never see him again. And you would think that's obvious, but it just, sometimes you have those mental snaps where you realize something, like you know it and you've been telling yourself that, but you actually start to believe it at different points. So when that realization comes in, that's usually about that time frame. That's hard to deal with. And so if it happens in year 2 and you start to feel like, man, this is a bummer. And then you might start to think that things are never going to get any better. Like, you start thinking, wow, well, if they don't ever come back, then my life is never going to be happy again, or my life is never going to get any better again. Like, it's just going to keep on being sad and grief and widowhood and all this forever. And so when that realization kind of hits you, it comes crashing down. It's a real bummer emotionally. And it's almost like the second wave of grief. And it might not be the size of the tidal wave it was in the beginning, but you're already tired. Like, you've already been swimming the tidal wave from the beginning, and you can't handle it as well because you've been swimming in this tidal wave or this grief water for a year, and you're freaking tired. Like, you've been doing it and you've been trying to, figure out what to do by yourself. You've been doing all these things. It's exhausting to be in constant grief every single day, because you don't get to take a break. You don't get to take a vacation from grieving. You can take a vacation. You can take your grief with you. You're going to take your memories with you. You're going to take your emotions with you. You can try to think about other things and get your mind off of your grief sometimes, but like the baggage of your grief, you never get to put it down. And so when you start to realize that, it's like it's more of like a weary feeling than an acute panicky feeling, if that makes sense. Like there's the acute panic, and then, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I got to deal with all this and like chaos and everything's going on. This is more of a like, the Chinese water torture. It's just day after day after day. Just you're weary, you're tired, and you're like, I'm never going to be able to put this grief baggage down. And when you think about that and you think about the future and what's ahead of you, it could be hard to think about it because you don't know how far into the future you're going to live. And however long that is, you're like, wow, that I'm going to be widowed for that whole time. And so I'm not saying these things to bring up this reminder, but yes, but I think that when you get to that realization during that time period, that's when you that's when you maybe start to think, wow, this is a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. And oh, it's Dallas. We have a guest. She's coming in to say hello. Yep. We were just sharing your grief issues that you were having this week about your sad moment, and realizing that, anytime that kind of stuff happens, it affects people a little bit more, than a person who hadn't already dealt with a loss like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how are you hanging?
Better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you do to, she actually did something to help her feel better, for the news. So what did you do to, kind of deal with, and what was your friend's idea for you to do?
I drew, well, I'm still doing it, but I'm drawing his character.
Okay. So she's making an artwork of his character, and she's been spending hours and hours on it, like as a tribute to him. And so it's kind of helping her to deal with that. So she draws a lot. And so I think drawing kind of helps. It's kind of like her version of journaling. I've been telling them how important it is to journal. And so rather than writing she writes words on her pictures, her feelings. She writes them around the pictures and things, but it's always a central figure or a person or a drawing. And then around the edges, it'll be different statements about what her emotional state is at the time. So it's her version of journaling.
Reading chat.
Yeah, you're reading the chat? Oh, precious
Thank
girl.
you.
Hi, Dallas. Sorry for your loss. Oh, Jonice says, hello, sweetie. I wish I could hug you. Love your hair. Yeah. So, yeah.
My sister did it.
Her sister is a cosmetology student, so she did the bangs and
actually all of it. Too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Naturally curly. Trying to figure out what to do with that one. Hormones caused it go from straight to curly in like overnight. So
I can't stand up, or my face is in the camera.
All right. Well, thanks for popping in. See ya. See ya.
Okay, bye-bye.
She said bye.
Have a good day, everybody.
She said, have a good day. Oh, well, it was nice of her to make a little appearance. So, okay. So we were talking about the like the shift from year 1 to year 2, and how that shift, kind of the realization of it's, even though you've dealt with all the chaos from before and you might have put all that stuff to rest, that the grief part and the part that you're having to carry with you is always going to be there. And once you get to that realization, then it's very heavy. It's very heavy and exhausting to think about, emotionally exhausting to think about. And that might be the time when you might need to seek therapy. You might need a therapist at that point. Maybe you haven't been into therapy before now, and you think, I don't need this, but that might be a time where you might go to see somebody that can help you deal with that, because that's a big heavy thing. And so depending on how you handle that realization and that shift could be the reason why some people are like, you know what, year 2 was worse than year 1, because it was that realization. It was that same thing. It was that, wow, this is never going to change. The situation, the thing that's making me feel how I feel is never going to change. You're going to change, and your circumstances are going to change, and you're going to grow, and you're going to be on this journey, and you're going to learn how to deal with these things, but sometimes the burden can seem overwhelming. And so I can understand that. And I think that's a big reason why people think that year two um, is harder. Now, if you're in year two or you're past year two and you feel like year two was harder, I'm curious to know if there's a different reason or if there's other issues, that cause those feelings, or if there's a different take on it that I don't have. Um, so feel free to put anything down there if you would like, and to share your thoughts on that. Um, Also, during year two was when my kids started to realize, like the realization to my kids came that, wow, daddy's not ever coming back. Like it took a while for them too to realize that, it's one thing to say to yourself, they're gone and they're never coming back. But then when you actually start to realize it, um, so the kids started to realize it during that time too, and it really hit them hard. And so when things hit them hard, it hits me hard because I'm dealing with them and trying to find help for them and trying to give them support. And so it's just like it was round and round and round. It seems like every time one kid had an issue and we dealt with it and we kind of got them stabilized, then another kid would have an issue and we'd deal with them and get them stabilized. And then it was it's like a kid, right? With their with their with their stuff. And that's the way I felt. And that's what made me so weary and tired, was just the constant having to deal with the grief issues with the kids. And it's really hard because you don't have any support. You don't have your spouse there to help with the kids. You're doing everything by yourself. And so it was really hard too. And so that made it harder also for year two, was not only for the kids, but then me having to help the kids. Also, you really start moving forward, and you've probably started to make some other changes. Like you might be moving, or you might have changed jobs, or you might be dating, or you might have made new friends, or you might, the changes that you're making in this new life for yourself. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing that you're moving forward. But sometimes when we think about where we're going, and it means that when you're moving forward, that means you're leaving the memory of your spouse and your person farther and farther behind. And so sometimes as you're moving forward, you get feelings of guilt because you're like, okay, I'm doing better. I'm moving forward. I'm making some changes and I'm growing. And then you realize that to do that, you have to move farther and farther away from your past. And so it's hard. It's like a tug of war because you need to move forward, but you don't want to because you don't want to leave your spouse behind. And so it's a hard situation to be in, because like a rubber band that's stretching, and the farther it stretches, the tighter and harder it gets. And so it is hard to think about moving forward. I did another video, I don't know, a month or two ago. It was called like walking backwards while moving forwards, or something like that. And I think it was a good visual, of how we can do this and why it's so difficult. So if you want to watch that, I kind of go into those details on that one. I can put it in the description also. I'll put a link to that after we get finished and I wrap it up. And so I think that's about all I had to say about those changes and those differences. Like now you're about to do a whole new set of milestones. And like now it's the second Father's Day after they died, and it's the second birthday after they died, and it's the second Christmas, and the second this and the second that. That's when you start realizing, wow, like now I have to do this all over again, the milestones. And then when I get done with all the seconds, then I get to go to do the thirds and the fourths. Like every year you have a new set of milestones. It's the same ones. Now you got to figure out, what do I do this time? And what do I do this time? And what do I do this time? And do I do the same thing, or do I do new stuff? Or do I make new, do I make new, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Traditions, or do I mix them with what I used to do? Or do I just do the same thing we always do so that we can preserve the memory? Like it's so hard to decide how to move forward on all of those things. And so as you're doing these new milestones, like it is a little different. This year, I just finished year 5, and that was a tough milestone. It really, the 5-year anniversary of his death was just this few weeks ago. And like, I just kept thinking about 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. Like, I cannot believe I have not seen his face in 5 years. 5 years. Like, that is a long time, 5 years is, but it seems like, and my daughter said it so well. My oldest daughter, I texted her and I was like, it's the 5-year anniversary. And she was like, oh my God. She said, I can't. She's like, it seems like forever ago, but it also seems like yesterday at the same time. Like, it seems like it just happened because it was so traumatic that you never forget some of those moments. But it also seems like forever ago because my life is so different now. My kids are so different now. I look at pictures of them, what they look like when their dad died, and I'm like, they were babies, and now they're growing up. Like, all two of my kids are left home. One of them is graduating from high school and is getting ready to, go to college, and then, little Dally, she's 12 years old. She was 7. She had just had her 7th birthday. Got a doll from him for her birthday, and now she's doing her hair. Like, she's got all her makeup and her fashion stuff, and her, she's doing her style or whatever. But she's not a 7-year-old kid. She's a preteen, and I'm like, these kids are growing up, and it's so sad to think. And on a day-to-day basis, I'm dealing okay. But on milestones like that, I don't even know how to, I don't know if you want to call it celebrate, but like, I don't even know how to deal with them after it's been so long. It's like, do you still do those celebrations or those commemorations, or do you, I don't know. I take it one day at a time. I take it one milestone at a time. And that's all I can do. And so, and I have to, I used to think, well, if I don't, I'll feel guilty if I don't, go to the cemetery, because what will people think? But then I realized that I don't care what people think. Like, that's not what I need to do for myself. Going to the cemetery does not make me feel better. It makes some people feel better. More power to them. JP goes to the cemetery. He passes by it every day on the way to work and back. And, he probably goes at least once a month. I'm not really sure. But, I mean, it brings him comfort, and that's fine. I've been once, and I might go again sometime. Or if the kids say they want to go, I'll take them, but like, people are like, well, you should just go to the cemetery. Well, you go to the cemetery. Like, I don't want to go. But for a while, I felt like I had to do the things that were expected of me to do. Or else I was like, well, people will think I didn't love him, or people will think that I'm not doing it right, or whatever. And it takes a while. You got to get over that, because there's no right or wrong way to grieve. So don't do the things that you think people are expecting you to do. Do the things that make you feel better. Do the things that help you move forward. And that might not be the things that people expect you to do. And don't apologize, because this is your journey, not theirs. Maybe hope that they don't ever have this journey, but at some point, the only way that is, marriage, a successful marriage, ends in death. And that's terrible to have to say it that way, but like, there's only 2 ways marriage can end: death or divorce. And so if your spouse died, that means you had a successful marriage. And so the people who are telling you how to grieve, or the people who are judging you, pray that they don't have to ever, the ones who judge are the ones that they haven't lived on our shoes at all. And so you just have to, I guess, chalk it up to their ignorance and leave it at that. Try not to take it personally, but it's kind of hard sometimes. All right, I'm going to go back and look at a few of the chats and see if there's any questions or comments that we want to talk about. Somebody had asked earlier about, is there is grief a choice? And I'll talk about that in just a minute. My thoughts on it anyway. Joni says, me and my girls can carry on. We are all singers, and we try to meet twice a month. It is fun and essential. Awesome. That's a great idea. Meeting a couple times a month and getting together and singing. And I love to sing too. I go to karaoke, and that's just my thing. Me and my daughter love to sing karaoke. Friday evening dinner with friends. Last night a concert. Best day of the week. Awesome. That's perfect. Getting out and spending time with friends is a really good way to heal. At least you can forget about your grief for a few minutes and get out there and be a normal person and do the things that normal people are supposed to do. Let's see. I have in-laws to deal with. Yeah. I've done some videos about some in-laws. Yeah, we got some stories. We got some in-law stories. Let's see. I feel you about New Year's Day. Yeah. So I think that's more common than I realized when I shared it. People were like, me too. I went through that too. Um, Kay says, hello from South Carolina. Husband passed away 11/26/21, and my mom 5/17. Yeah. So that's one of those compounding grief. When we have like big losses kind of close together, it compounds and it makes it even tougher to try to deal with that because you're already grieving and then you're trying to grieve again, and then it's tough. I don't forget some things. I wish I could, but yeah, well, and some people remember other things, and that some people don't. Gay Scott says, I'm 5 years widowed. His angel day is in February. Last Saturday would have been our 39th wedding anniversary. So you're about the point where I am at that 5 year stage. And, it is a little different. You're always going to be sad and you're always going to think about them. But at some point after that many years, you should be at a different place than you were in that first year. And if you're not, you might be dealing with complicated grief, and you might need to, seek some therapy for that. So, let's see. Sometimes I find myself reading too many posts and makes me sad. I need to limit reading all the different sites. Yeah, sometimes, Tim, it depends on the group. Sometimes I think our group is really good about just being real supportive, and trying to be positive and try to see both sides. But there are some groups that it's just like a misery loves company kind of a fest. And it's just like everybody is just talking about how they don't want to live anymore, and they just are waiting around to die until they see their spouse. And they're like, yeah, me too. And it's just all a commiseration of just sad and bad and sad. And I'm thinking, well, how is this helping? I mean, I know you feel this way. I feel for you, but like, by putting it out there and having everybody else say, yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, I feel the same way. Is that helping anybody to move forward? Is that helping anybody on their grief journey? Or is it just sitting around just complaining about how your life sucks and how sad you are and how you just waiting around to die so you can see your spouse again? We all feel these feelings sometimes. We all go through these feelings of feeling that way. But like, by posting it, I don't understand how it's helping anybody if somebody doesn't come along and say, hey, maybe you can try this or this to feel better. Some of those groups, if you try to cheer somebody up, well, they'll chase you right out. And I don't know why, but like, they do not want anybody trying to talk them out of their grief, and so they want to be sassy and be like, you don't know what I'm going through. I'm like, okay, all right, okay. Sometimes we need to, be in our feelings and kind of be on the sad train sometimes, but it can't stay all the time. I wanted to recommend a couple of videos. I'm going to look them up, put the links down here. But if you go back through my YouTube channel, there's one that's called The Grief Train. I did not write it. I just read it, but someone else wrote it. But it was an awesome story. And if you go, it's only like a few minutes. Like, it's like not even 10 minutes long, I think. But it resonated with me so much that I wanted to share it with as many people as I could, because I felt like the analogy was awesome. And I think it will make you feel better about what you're going through if you were to watch that one. So just look up The Grief Train on my YouTube channel if I don't have the link down there. And then there's the other one that I talked about, walking backwards while you're moving forwards. That's another one that's not too long, but I think it's got some insights in there that might help you to see things in a different way, or just to know that you're not alone on this journey. Let's see. Year 2 for me was less support. Oh, yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. Yeah, year 2 is like, that's another thing that might be more difficult for people, is that once you're in year 2, people are like, well, you should be over it by now. Like, it's been over a year. Time for you to get back to life. Like, you don't need our help anymore, right? Why are you still crying? Aren't you like good now? Aren't you over it by now? It's time for you to get over it. It's time for you to move on. Like, they just think, because it's hard for people to know how to help you. And so and it makes them feel uncomfortable, and they need you to be better so they don't feel so bad. So that's another thing that happens, I think, in year 2, is that people are like, you feel like you don't have the right to ask for help or support, or to have a breakdown, or to take a mental day off, or even to seek therapy maybe, because you're like, why after this, I'm in year 2 now, or year 3 now, why am I feeling this way? Shouldn't I feel better? Shouldn't I be better? Shouldn't I feel some happiness? And so that could be another thing that kind of hangs around, and that people might not give you the same sympathy, or give you the same grace to have those moments when you're in year 2 or later. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's see. This, and Joni says, "Oh God, this reminds me of the Broadway play Stop the World, I Want to Get Off." I don't know about that one. I might have to check it out. It might be kind of the same story idea or whatever. So I'm going to look that up. Thank you. 6 month on the 4th feels like yesterday. I hate this so much. Yeah, 6 months. Yeah, it's kind of like, wow, 6 months. But then you're like, ooh, 6 months was kind of like yesterday. 6 months is, you're still in fresh grief, and you're probably just now starting the chaos might be just now starting to calm down a little bit. And now you're having to deal with, how do I live every day and deal with all of this? So, and I can totally get how you can, how you're where you are, Lynette. God bless you, Queen Leo. Thank you, Jonice. That's so sweet. Tim, same here. Laurie, my other name sister there. I have a Laurie and a Lynette, and that's my first and middle name. And so both of them are on here. New Year's Day was the hardest day for me too. I'm now 10 months. Did you do any on anger? I have friends that are remarried and they both had lost spouses. They both said, wait until the anger hits. Well, it somewhat hit in the beginning, but lately it's like, okay, I'm done. I want him back now. This isn't funny anymore. So the anger is usually follows the denial and the numbness. So anger is usually kind of early on. So in the beginning, it's denial. There's some denial where like, nope, I'm not a widow. He's not gone. He's not, you're refusing to believe. And then there's another where that it's true, but you just can't get your brain around it. Like it's hard for you to understand that it's really happening because you feel like you're kind of in a dream. Once you get past that, that's usually the very first, and the numbness and like shock, and you're dealing with stuff. And then once that kind of levels out, your feelings start to come in and the realization comes in, and then anger is usually somewhere in there. And it depends on the manner of death, and it depends on if your spouse left you taken care of or if they left you holding the bag. And, there's just a lot of issues that could contribute to the anger phase. I did not really have an anger phase that much. Mine was just more just sad and grief and low. And because I thought, well, who am I going to be mad at? Like, I can't be mad at him. He had cancer. He didn't want to die. He left me set up pretty well, and he took care of his family, and, it was really sad for him. I could have been mad at God, I guess, but I just never went through that phase either. Cause I'm like, well, everybody dies, and he just died really early. And I know it wasn't God's doing. And so, I didn't really go through that anger phase too much. There was a few times where I'm like, oh, I hate this life. I don't want to have to do all this. But for the most part, I kind of glanced over the anger part. So, but I do know how there are a lot of people who get to that anger stage and they get stuck there. And that's when it gets to complicated grief. If you get stuck in the anger phase, you need some therapy. You need to talk to somebody because you're not supposed to stay there. And let's see. Okay. So sorry, we need to leave. Very helpful session. Okay. I think that's probably going to be about it. So, feel free if you want to put comments in the description below. There's a comment section that will be up there on the on the recording. Feel free to let me know if year 2 was harder for you, not as hard, different, what your take on it. What if I maybe missed some things that contributed to the difference in the feelings between year 1 and year 2, but there's definitely, a different vibe between year 1 and year 2. And it kind of just, maybe doesn't happen right at year 1, but you know what I mean? The first year has a lot different feeling than the second year. Some people deal with this part better. Some people don't deal with this part as well. And I think it depends on the person. And so either way, it's not right or wrong. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. No matter what kind of support you need, come to our group. Look up on our Facebook group, and it's in the description below. But come join our Facebook group. Lots of support there, lots of help, lots of caring people there. It's very positive. So it's not a pity party for sure. People come in and feel free to share your issues and your problems, but you're going to get loved on, and then you're going to get some support, and then you're going to get some encouragement to try to, to move forward and find ways to feel better. All right. So thank you so much for all of you to come in, working on happying up my house, new flooring, new coming in a couple weeks. Tomorrow marks 3 months. Yes. So Maggie, that's a good, to try to make some changes. Yeah, definitely. I would say that's a very good idea. So, all right, my son is over there playing video games and he's screaming and probably using language he shouldn't use. So I don't want you to hear that, but okay, guys. All right, we'll see you. If we don't do a live, I'll let you know, but I'm hoping to do a live on a new camera soon. And my dogs are outside on the window. All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time. Appreciate you. Bye.